Hey friends, just popping in before we start this video to tell you about my newest project, Delusion Media. I love making content on YouTube, and I think there is so much opportunity to grow your business and your personal brand here on YouTube, yes, even in 2023. So I invite you to join me over on the Delusion Media YouTube channel or on delusionmedia.co to get the info you need to create a thriving YouTube channel today. Now let's get to the video. Okay, y'all might be like, cannibalism? Really? What are we doing here? But let me explain. Okay? For some weird reason, cannibalism keeps coming up in the random media that I've been consuming. Okay, not a pun. Yuck, all right? For example, I have been reading this book. I forgot to grab it. Well, I'll put a little picture right here. It's called A Certain Hunger. It's about a woman who's a food critic, but also a sociopath who kills men and eats their butts. Literally. Like, eats their butts. I don't really know how I feel about it, frankly. A lot of people told me to read this, and to you I say, what's going on here, okay? Then I randomly watched a fun episode from Ask a Mortician. I'm sure a lot of you know who I'm talking about. I'm sure you follow them here on YouTube. And obviously I love a macabre tale, so I'm in. And the video was about the real life Moby Dick, where a whale hunting expedition turned nightmare when a whale attacked the ship, capsizing it and leaving the sailors stranded on tiny whaling boats in the middle of the Pacific Ocean for so long that they resorted to eating each other. And I guess eating each other raw? I hadn't really considered that until just now. I don't know why I thought they were lighting little fires on their tiny wooden boats. Yikes. Yikes. Okay, then I also started listening to a new podcast called Bedside Manners by 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 and Aaron Mahnke, who's my macabre podcast king. And one of the episodes was about the historical consumption of humans, especially human blood, as a way to heal the body and find everlasting youth, in theory. And then last week's episode of This Is Us, cannibals. And I'm like, Leeja, the universe is pushing you towards this, and who am I to question the divine intervention from the universe? So I'm here today to talk about cannibalism laws because, I don't know, why not? Roll the intro. I'm super excited about today's sponsor, Hungryroot. Hungryroot is a tech-enabled grocery service that delivers fresh groceries and recipes right to your door so you'll never get so hungry that your roommate starts looking like a nice dinner option. Don't eat your roommate, eat Hungryroot instead. It's personalized to your lifestyle and tastes, and when I say personalized, I mean it. You start by taking a little quiz when you sign up where you share how you like to eat, your dietary needs, and your goals like eating more plants, trying new recipes, saving time in the kitchen, etc. And I love how personalized Hungryroot is. If you've been following me on my other social medias, you know that I've been working on getting my hormones and my gut health balanced, which means that I'm not currently eating dairy or gluten, though sometimes I cheat a little, don't tell anyone, which can make things kind of difficult. Like usually if something's gluten-free, it has cheese on it, or if it doesn't have cheese, then it's vegan, but I'm not a vegan, okay? Do you see the dilemma? But Hungryroot takes that into consideration, and now that I've gotten a couple boxes of food from Hungryroot, I frankly am spoiled, okay? I get groceries and I don't even have to think twice about whether I can eat anything in the box. Such a relief. And the more you use Hungryroot, the more the personalization engine learns what you like. So you can then spend even less time planning, shopping, and cooking. And I've loved the amount of time that Hungryroot saves me on grocery shopping and planning week after week, especially now that it's getting to know my personal preferences. So every week you get personalized deliveries with healthy groceries and quick, easy recipes. So you can mix and match and use the groceries for anything, or you can follow the recipes that they send. I just follow the recipes because I like to keep things nice and simple. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, and the recipes are delicious. And honestly, stupid simple, okay? Like check out this shrimp taco salad that they sent me. Literally, you just cook the shrimp, throw in the lettuce, the pre-made black bean cucumber salad, and top it with a little dressing. Voila, lunch in 10 minutes. Plus, you can have them send you fun snacks, and you know I love fun snacks. There's a ton of options for all diets and over 2,000 recipes to discover, so you'll never get bored. Now, just for my viewers, the first 100 people to use my code Leeja40 will get 40% off your first grocery order at hungryroot.com. 40%! Go get it! Alright, so I thought we would organize this cannibalism discussion into a couple sections. We're gonna focus just on the US in the somewhat recent history, just to keep this simple. First, let's do a little historical deep dive into cannibalism in the US, followed by an examination of the legal ramifications for the most famous cannibals in our midst. And finally, a look at the legal landscape around cannibalism. Not gonna lie, I was not thrilled to type in history of cannibalism in America into Google for this, but honestly, once I did, I couldn't look away. I'm limiting this discussion to cannibalism in recent history because I was reading that there was some evidence to suggest various Native American tribes participated in cannibalism, and while that may be true, I do not personally feel qualified to dig into that history and do it any justice. So I'll be sticking mainly to the whites today, if you don't mind. And it turns out the whites have been consuming humans since pretty much as early as we got here. Remember Jamestown? It was the first English settlement in North America. And in the winter of 1609, Jamestown settlers experienced what they called the starving time. That does not sound fun. They entered the winter of 1609 to 1610 with 300 settlers. Only 60 were still standing by the springtime. And when they ran out of mice and snakes and leather boots to gnaw on, they started gnawing on each other. Survivor George Percy wrote, "And now famine beginning to look ghastly and pale in every face, that nothing was spared to maintain life and to do those things which seem incredible, as to dig up dead corpses out of graves and to eat them. And some have licked up the blood which hath fallen from their weak fellows." Yikes.
Yikes.
Then there is, of course, the doomed Donner Party, a group of 87 pioneers on the western frontier of the new United States, attempting to travel untraveled ground and settle new territory. In the winter of 1846, the Sierra Nevada mountains experienced heavy snowfall, around 25 feet, and the Donner Party got trapped in the woods northwest of Lake Tahoe. They decided to set up camp and wait out the winter. However, soon the ice and snow killed their cattle and dwindled their food supply. Of the original 87 people, 42 died. Half of the survivors engaged in cannibalism to stay alive. When a rescue team finally arrived months later, they were horrified to discover human remains littered throughout the camp, and they came upon 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏𝗏 in the midst of preparing himself some nice human lung and liver as a treat. Rumor has it that he didn't engage in cannibalism for survival, but he had actually murdered his fellow travelers after developing a taste for human flesh. Okay, so that was all in the category of survival cannibalism. If we don't eat humans, then we starve. But there are other types of cannibalism, turns out. I'm thinking specifically of medical cannibalism. Yes, eating human body parts for their medicinal purposes. This was big in Europe, and while I didn't find explicit examples of it occurring here in the US, it was still going on in Europe when Europeans came over here, so I gotta believe some of this came with them. For a while, it was mummies. Yes, Egyptian mummies. They ground them up and put them in tinctures to cure all sorts of ills, including internal bleeding. Powdered skull was used to cure head ailments. Like cures like, get it? Human fat was used to treat the outside of the body. For example, German doctors prescribed bandages soaked in human fat for wounds. Rubbing human fat onto your skin was considered a remedy for gout. And human blood? Well, that cured epilepsy. Obviously. But you had to get it as fresh as possible. So often, those seeking the sweet, sweet blood nectar would go to public executions with cups. Yes, I am not making this up. And after the criminal was beheaded, they'd go up and fill their chalice nice and fresh. And it was thought that you should drink the blood of someone who's healthy and in their 20s because they believed that your life was preordained to be a certain length. So when it was cut short, that meant that there was still a lot of life left in your blood. So anyone who drank it would be given that life force. Doesn't that sound nice? And while this all does seem, pretty outlandish now, a piece of medical cannibalism still exists today in the people who eat their own placentas, thinking that it will help balance their hormones and keep postpartum depression at bay. And then you of course have the infamous serial killer cannibals, people who ate flesh not to survive or for their medicinal purposes, but as part of their killing spree. For example, Albert Fish, who famously roasted a victim with some bacon, and Jeffrey Dahmer, aka the Milwaukee Cannibal. No, I did not watch the Netflix special. I don't need that energy in my life, thank you very much. Okay? But were any of these people put on trial and charged with cannibalism as a crime? Nope. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏, the survivor of the Dahmer Party who was found snacking on the remnants of his fellow pioneers, was accused by his own rescuers of being a cannibal, thief, and murderer, which he fervently denied. Well, he didn't deny the cannibal part, but he denied killing anyone, and he said that he only ate them after they died. Lewis actually sued one of his rescuers for defamation for the rumors that he spread, and Lewis won. He was never tried for any crimes. Frankly, the whole situation was such a mess. Prosecutors, if there even were prosecutors around at the time, it was the Wild West after all. Probably the prosecutors, if they existed, they didn't know what to do with the situation, so they decided to just let it go. Okay? Albert Fish, on the other hand, whose crimes I won't get into because I don't have the stomach for it, he was put on trial for the murder of a 10-year-old girl named Grace Budd. He was charged with first-degree murder. The crime was deemed sexually motivated, even though in a letter, a very disturbing and creepy letter that he wrote to her mother after the fact, he made it very clear that he intended to kill her in order to eat her. But by deeming it a crime motivated by sex, prosecutors and the law, they were able to avoid talking about cannibalism during the trial altogether. The defense argued that he was insane and should be spared, but the jury decided that even though he was definitely insane, he should probably also still be electrocuted. So they sentenced him to death, and he was killed via electric chair at Sing Sing in 1936 for the crime of murder. Jeffrey Dahmer was also charged with murder, 15 counts of murder. He too pled guilty but insane, and his defense also tried to argue that he was insane and unable to control his impulses. However, he was found guilty for murder on all 15 counts and got 15 life sentences because the death penalty wasn't an option in Wisconsin. He was later, however, bludgeoned to death by a fellow inmate. Again, cannibalism doesn't seem to have played a role in the trial against him. Here's the thing though, cannibalism isn't technically illegal. It's not. There's only one state that explicitly outlaws cannibalism, and that's Idaho. In Idaho, the law states any person who willfully ingests the flesh or blood of a human being is guilty of cannibalism. But it says that cannibalism is defensible in cases of extreme, life-threatening conditions as the only apparent means of survival. But conviction on a charge of cannibalism in any other case is punishable by up to 14 years in prison. Federally and in all other states, cannibalism is not explicitly illegal. Murder is, as is desecration of a corpse, which mostly would probably cover the cannibalism part in most cases, but there are no laws outside of Idaho's that say explicitly that eating human flesh is illegal. And the lack of legal oversight doesn't stop there. A Reuters expose from 2017 about the market for human body parts made me uncomfortable. Okay? In the expose, Reuters discussed body brokers, or non-transplant tissue banks, saying they are distinct from the organ and tissue transplant industry, which the US government closely regulates. Selling hearts, kidneys, and tendons for transplant is illegal, but no federal law governs the sale of cadavers or body parts for use in research or education. Few state laws provide any oversight whatsoever, and almost anyone, regardless of expertise, can dissect and sell human body parts. The current state of affairs is a free-for-all. Hate that. Hate that. And these body parts largely come from a large supply of free bodies from the poor. In return for a body, brokers will cremate the donor, or part of the donor, I guess, or cover the funeral costs at no charge. Because funerals are unbelievably expensive. So this option appeals to lower income folks who think that they're donating their body or their loved one's body to science and saving on funeral costs at the same time. And few rules mean few consequences when bodies are mistreated, and that seems to be happening a lot. For example, in the fall of 2015, outside the suburban warehouse of Southern Nevada Donor Services, a body brokerage company, neighbors began complaining about a mysterious stench and bloody boxes found in dumpsters. When health inspectors showed up, they found a man in the courtyard hosing off a frozen torso with a garden hose, trying to get it to thaw out in the midday sun. As the man sprayed, according to the Reuters report, the bits of tissue and blood were washed into the gutters. A state health report said the stream weaved past storefronts and pooled across the street near a technical school. Yikes. Yikes. In this case, officials found that they could do little more than issue a pollution citation to one of the workers. That was the only legal remedy available because there aren't laws about the handling of body parts. The article goes on to say that there is a big market for dead bodies, according to 𝗬𝗦𝗏, a Boston College Law School professor who studies how US laws treat the dead. He said, "We know very little about who is acquiring these bodies and what they're doing with them. In most states, anyone can legally purchase body parts. A Tennessee broker sold Reuters a cervical spine and 2 human heads after just a few email exchanges. And yes, a lot of these body parts are being used for training and doctors and science, etc. But listen, hear me out, okay? Also, probably by cannibals, right? Like, there are websites for cannibal enthusiasts. I didn't visit them because I was too scared, but like, they exist. There are people who are casual armchair enthusiasts of human flesh, and they hang out on discussion boards online to chat about it. And if they could get their hands on some of the good stuff through a body broker, what's to stop them? Certainly not our laws. In September of last year, Senator Christopher Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, introduced the Consensual Donation and Research Integrity Act of 2022 into the U.S. Senate. The act would require entities that acquire or transfer human bodies or body parts to register with the Department of Health and Human Services and to comply with record-keeping, labeling, and packaging requirements. That bill was referred to the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, which I thought was a committee with a rather large swath of issues to deal with. Health and education and pensions and also labor. I don't know. Seems like a lot. Anyway, haven't heard from the bill since. It was also introduced in the House in 2021 and nothing came of it. So, seems like our lawmakers are too busy playing the stock market and being landlords to care much about what's happening to poor people's bodies. Which sounds about right. Thank you again to my partner on today's video, Hungry Root. Reminder, don't eat your roommate, eat Hungry Root instead. The first 100 people to use my code Leeja40 will get 40% off your first grocery order at hungryroot.com. 40%! Go get it! If you've ever thought about making your own YouTube channel, might I suggest checking out my second channel, Delusion Media. Or go to delusionmedia.co to sign up for my newsletter and receive regular tips and tricks for how to create content on YouTube. Thanks to my Patreon supporters, including my newest supporter, Brian M. Thanks as always to my royal patrons, Old Man Pence, Fork McSpoon, Ellen L, Lita, May Danger, Rachel, Eviana TV, Jennifer, and Catherine. And an extra special thank you to my multi-platinum patron, Brett Peon Tech. Your support is greatly appreciated and it makes this channel what it is, so thank you. If you liked this video, you might also like a video that I did a while ago all about the history of body snatching. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.